Time for a new travel video, this time on Cape Scott Provincial Park on Vancouver Island. One of the things that sometimes confuses visitors to British Columbia is that Vancouver is on the mainland and Vancouver Island is, not surprisingly, not. Vancouver Island is absolutely huge. It's an island just off the coast, 31,000 square kilometers, which is larger than the area of Massachusetts. And it's longer at 460 kilometers than Pennsylvania is wide, with a population of 870,000, almost all in the bottom third of the island. The top third is really not very populated at all. Cape Scott is up towards the north end of the island. So it's up here, up north of Port McNeill, and the turnoff for the road west across the island is at Port Hardy. Just before you get into the town of Port Hardy, that's where you begin to cross over. But that, of course, begs the question, how would you get there? Well, Port Hardy is the ferry terminal for the ferry from Prince Rupert, way to the north, that comes down the Inside Passage. That is a really, really great trip. If you want to see the Inside Passage, this is a terrific way of doing it. You'll see whales along the way and so on, and eventually you get into Port Hardy. That said, very few people are going to show up at Cape Scott that way. You're probably going to go from Vancouver, in which case you're going to take the ferry from Horseshoe Bay across to Nanaimo, or possibly to Wasson up to Duke Point, which is also Nanaimo. And then you're going to drive the Island Highway north, maybe seeing a few things along the way, and wind up pretty close to Port Hardy. Then you're going to take a logging road that takes you across the northern end of the island over to San Josef Bay. Now, this road doesn't look too bad, but it's actually quite rough, and there's a good chance that if you're driving a rental vehicle, your company will not permit you to use this road. As well, large logging trucks can come barreling past you and throw up rocks that can crack your windshield. Anyway, so let's presume you've got a vehicle that you can take on this road. It's a fair ways, can't remember exactly how far, but it's over 80 kilometers, I believe. And then you wind up in this area here. And you can see that there's a variety of different things here. There's a parking lot, and that's the parking area for the provincial park. And that's definitely someplace you're going to go to. But there's also two campgrounds just outside the provincial park. There's the Western Forest Products, the forest company, campground, and that's free, like many forest company lots. It is free to camp there. And here's an example of the kind of space that you wind up in. It's got pit toilets and no running water, so you have to bring all your water with you. And the other option is the San Josef Heritage Campsite, or Heritage Park. And this is more of a field-type campground run by a gentleman who's been there apparently for many years and gets quite good reviews as a place to stay. So either one of those is a reasonable choice. If not those, then you're packing your stuff in. Not necessarily very far, but you do have to pack your stuff into a campground. Here is that parking lot for the Cape Scott Provincial Park. This is where everybody parks regardless of what they're doing. Are they camping on the beach? Are they hiking into Cape Scott itself, the lighthouse area? Or are they doing the North Coast Trail, which is actually 5 days out and 5 days back for most of the people who take it? That's quite a trek, and you're not going to see anything about it here, trust me. But everybody has to park in this lot. The signage, as you can see, is actually pretty good. You're not likely to get lost on this trail. Here is the trail to San Josef Bay itself, which is a pretty easy trail and wide and cleared. You could take a wheelchair down this trail in all likelihood. Didn't look at it with that in mind, but you probably could. And a lot of people camping have wagons, fold-up wagons that they're bringing all their camping supplies down. And that's quite doable. This is the site of an old community that was founded here, but the province never built a road out to it, and so it really died out around the time of World War I. There are a few vestiges of it, but all the buildings would have been made out of wood, and so with the amount of rain that Cape Scott gets, they would have decayed away long ago. There are little bits of equipment and things like that that you can find, however. So again, this is the trail out to the beach, San Josef Bay itself, where you can camp right on the beach or just up from the beach. You don't want to camp below the tide line, obviously. Although I'm sure every year somebody does that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful beach, and the day I was there, there were some people surfing nearby. Not huge surf, but surfable, apparently. And let's take a walk along the beach. One thing to be aware of is that the weather can change up at Cape Scott pretty rapidly, and it's a pretty wet area, so you want to be fully equipped for wet weather. This day, in fact, is not so bad. It does get sun out there, but don't count on it. So this is the trail that you took down to San Josef Bay, but what if you go in the opposite direction on the actual Cape Scott Trail towards Eric Lake, where there is a campsite about halfway down the lake? And there are several other campsites on the way. From the intersection, Cape Scott is actually a 21.7 kilometer trail. Now you might be thinking, that doesn't sound so bad. Keep in mind though, it's an out and back trail, and this is the west coast of Vancouver Island, which means that the trail is pretty rough. Don't get fooled by the trail out to San Josef Bay. The trail is really quite something. It's reminiscent of the West Coast Trail on the west coast of Vancouver Island, much further south in Pacific Rim National Park. So let's take a look at what this trail actually looks like, and you'll get a sense that it's probably not going to be the fastest hike you ever did. And keep in mind, all of this wood is wet, so it's easy to slip. Nevertheless, it's not too far before you get to Eric Lake. And this is it here. I'd love to show you the rest of the trail, but unfortunately we weren't equipped for backpacking on this trip, and so we didn't actually go out to the Cape Scott Lighthouse itself. It's beautiful by every description. Here are a couple of photos of the area from other people who have been there. And I would recommend this to real aficionados of the British Columbia wilderness. One thing to be aware of is that, of course, there are bears and, of course, there are cougars. And actually, it was after we were there that we found out some of the bears are grizzlies. Most of them are black bears, less of a hassle, but usually at least. But some of them are grizzlies up there. That said, relatively few campers have any difficulties with bears, and there are storage containers for food and so on the beach and in other campgrounds as you go. So there you go, a quick introduction to Cape Scott Provincial Park. Now, if you're new to Vancouver Island, there are other places that are easier to get to and a little bit higher on the civilization scale and comfort scale. And I'll probably do other videos about those at some point. Just wanted to give you this one because it's a place I visited relatively recently.